I'm Carl, 25 years old, and after a crazy week at work, I decided I needed a break. I've been working long hours, barely had time for myself, and if I'm being honest, I was just exhausted. So, Saturday night rolls around, and I think to myself, why not go out and unwind a little? I didn't have any grand plans, nothing too crazy. Just a night out at a nightclub to drink, relax, maybe catch a few good vibes and see what's happening. There's this one place downtown that I've been to a couple of times. It's not the loud, chaotic kind of club, it's more laid back. People come to enjoy the music, dance, and just have a good time. I figured that's what I needed. I walked in around 10 p.m. The place was buzzing, but not too packed. It had a nice, mellow vibe. The lights were dim, and the music was just right. Nothing overwhelming, but enough to feel the energy in the air. I made my way to the bar, ordered a drink, and found a seat by the side. I was just soaking in the atmosphere, letting the tension from the week melt away. I didn't go out often. Honestly, it's not like I'm some regular club goer or anything. I prefer quieter nights with friends or even staying in, but tonight I just needed to get away from everything for a while. And the thought of seeing some good-looking women dancing, well, I won't lie, that was part of the appeal. The crowd was mixed, people chatting, laughing, a couple of groups dancing near the floor. Everything was pretty chill. I sipped my drink, looked around, and just tried to relax. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I didn't plan on meeting anyone or making some big connection. It was just me, myself, and the night. Then the lights dimmed, and the DJ's voice came through the speakers announcing the start of a performance. I didn't think much of it at first. It was a regular show, probably just some dancers doing their thing. But then one of the dancers took the stage, and I froze. I know it sounds ridiculous, but for a moment, I didn't even recognize her. She had her back to me, and all I could see was the silhouette and the shape of her body. It wasn't until she turned around, and I caught her face, that my heart skipped a beat. There, right in front of me was Lilia, my best friend's mom. I had to blink a couple of times to make sure I wasn't imagining things. It didn't make sense. Lilia was a very well-respected woman, the kind who always seemed to have everything together. I knew her as someone kind and elegant. The idea that she would be here, on stage, dancing, it didn't fit with the image I had of her at all. I looked around quickly, not wanting to make it obvious that I was staring. I tried to keep it together. I didn't want anyone to notice, especially not her. I told myself this is fine. It's just a show. No big deal. But inside I was shocked, completely caught off guard. The last thing I expected when I came out tonight was to see Lilia in a nightclub performing. She was in her mid-40s, but she looked amazing. She was just as beautiful as I remembered, maybe even more so now. She had a certain grace about her that was undeniable, even on that stage. I kept telling myself that it was no big deal, that it was just something she did for fun or as a hobby, but I couldn't stop my mind from racing. What was she doing here? Why hadn't I known about this? I knew Lilia had been through a lot. She raised her son alone after her husband left her when he was just a baby. But this was something new to me. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I didn't want to make it awkward for her or me. So I did what anyone in that situation would do. I looked away, pretended like I was watching something else. But even as I tried to focus on the crowd, I couldn't help but keep glancing back. Was I really seeing this? Was she really up there? The performance went on for a few more minutes, and I felt like time was moving in slow motion. I couldn't get over how surreal it all seemed. Finally, the music ended, and the lights came back up. I kept my head down, not making eye contact with anyone. I didn't want anyone to notice, but I couldn't shake the thought of Lilia up there dancing. Something about it just felt wrong, even though I couldn't explain why. The night was still young, but I was already feeling a bit uneasy. I wasn't sure what to make of the situation. Lilia, my best friend's mom, on stage in front of everyone. I kept replaying the moment in my head, trying to make sense of it. But the more I thought about it, the stranger it seemed. I didn't know how to process it. After a few more drinks, I thought it might be a good idea to just head home. I didn't come here to get stuck in my head over something I couldn't explain. I had just turned my attention back to the bar when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around quickly, and to my absolute shock, there she was. Lilia stood in front of me, looking calm, collected, and as beautiful as ever. Her presence was warm, but there was something different in her eyes. A hint of nervousness or maybe concern. I couldn't tell. "Carl," she said softly, her voice steady but carrying an undertone of unease. "Can we talk for a minute?" My stomach dropped. I froze. What was I supposed to say? I tried to keep my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. I wasn't sure whether to be embarrassed, surprised, or, I don't know, maybe even a little confused. But I didn't want to make a scene, so I nodded. "Sure, Lilia. What's going on?" We stepped to the side, away from the bar, and found a quieter corner in the club. It was still noisy with the music playing in the background, but it felt a little less intense here. She took a deep breath before speaking, clearly trying to gather her thoughts. "Look, I know this probably seems strange to you," she started, her eyes briefly flickering to the floor. "I never expected to run into you like this. I've been doing this for a while now, but I keep it private. It's just something I do for myself, you know. It helps me unwind, feel alive again." I was still trying to wrap my head around what she was saying, but I nodded. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. She was being open with me, and I could see how hard this was for her. "I understand," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though I was still processing everything. It's your life, Lilia. I didn't expect it. But if it makes you happy, then that's what matters." She smiled faintly, grateful for my response, but there was still something weighing on her. I don't want anyone to find out about this," she said quietly, glancing around as if to make sure no one else could overhear. "I've been keeping it private for a reason. It's not about anyone else. I don't want my son or anyone else to know. I've kept it under wraps for years. It's just my thing, you know." The fact that she was opening up to me like this made me realize how serious this was for her. This wasn't some careless mistake or a flippant decision. Lilia had clearly thought about this a lot. I could see the emotion in her eyes. This wasn't easy for her. "I won't tell anyone," I reassured her. "You don't have to worry about that. I get it. You're entitled to your own privacy." She gave a small, appreciative nod, though I could tell she was still carrying a heavy burden. "Thank you, Carl. You're one of the few people I can trust." I was surprised by her words, but I couldn't deny the sincerity in her voice. It was almost like she was asking for reassurance, for someone to understand her. "Of course," I said. "I won't say anything. It's between us." There was a brief silence, and I could tell she was trying to figure out what to say next. Finally, after a long pause, she took a step closer to me. Her gaze softened, and I could sense her vulnerability in that moment. I don't know why I'm telling you this, Carl," she said almost of herself. "Well, I guess I feel like I need someone to talk to. Someone who won't judge me." I nodded again, not knowing how to respond. I wasn't sure if this was the kind of conversation I'd ever expected to have with Lilia, but in a way, I respected her honesty. "And Carl," she added, her voice softer now, "I just want to thank you for being understanding. Not many people would be. You have no idea how much that means to me." I was about to reply, to say something reassuring, but before I could speak, she leaned in slightly and, to my shock, placed a soft kiss on my cheek. It was quick, almost like a gesture of gratitude, but it caught me completely off guard. "Thank you," she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. I really needed that. I stood there, stunned, as she pulled away. She reached in her pocket, pulled out a small folded note, and handed it to me. "Here," she said quietly, her expression now a bit more serious. "Take this. If you ever want to talk, or if you need anything, you can call me." I looked at the note for a moment, unsure of what to say. I didn't know whether to open it right there, or just leave. But Lilia was already walking away, giving me a small, somewhat nervous smile before she disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a few seconds, holding the note in my hand, still processing everything. What just happened? I stood frozen in the corner of the nightclub, the small folded note still clutched in my hand. I could hear the music pounding in the background, but it felt like everything around me was moving in slow motion. What just happened? I was still trying to comprehend everything. Lilia, my best friend's mom, had just kissed me on the cheek, handed me her number, and then left without another word. It was a lot to take in. My mind raced. Should I open the note? Should I forget this whole thing? I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. It was strange, completely unexpected. I wasn't sure what to do with the information I now had, but I couldn't just stand there forever. So I pocketed the note, finished my drink, and left the club. The whole ride home, I couldn't shake the image of Lilia from my mind. She wasn't just my best friend's mom anymore. She was a woman with her own life, her own struggles. She was someone who apparently needed someone to talk to, someone who had been carrying a burden for a long time. When I got home, I threw my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and sat down on the couch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a text, but there was nothing. I was relieved in a way, but then I remembered the note. I stared at the folded paper for a long moment, hesitating. I wasn't sure what to expect if I called her, but something inside me told me that this wasn't something I could just forget about. I had to do something. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was guilt, but whatever it was, I felt like I needed to follow through. Finally, I unfolded the note and read the number written on it. It felt surreal, almost too surreal to be real. Lilia's number, a simple slip of paper, yet it felt like the weight of the world was written on it. I didn't even know what I'd say, but I figured if I didn't call now, I might never get the chance again. Taking a deep breath, I dialed the number. The phone